Welcome to Facts TV News, where everything is true. GOJ pushing to make Portmore 15th parish despite PNP opposition. The government is moving ahead with its plan to establish Portmore as Jamaica's 15th parish, despite strong objections from the parliamentary opposition. Chairman of the Joint Selected Committee appointed to consider the new parish, Dr. Andrew Wheatley, opened the debate in the House of Representatives yesterday.
Dr. Wheatley says despite the partisan disagreements, Portmore is ready to be elevated as the country's 15th parish.
The size and special features of Portmore make it suitable to be a parish. Not only is it the largest dormitory community in the Caribbean, but its depth is firmly planted in the fact that the professionalism, Madam Speaker, and training of its residents make it unique and prime for further development. Portmore, though not perfect, has more amenities than many other already designated parishes in this country. Madam Speaker, the intention, as highlighted through the deliberations, is to structure future development of the area in a forward-thinking and sustainable manner.
The opposition People's National Party has opposed the move towards parish status for the municipality, arguing that it should be put to the people of Portmore in a referendum. The opposition has also argued that critical infrastructure such as hospitals and fire stations are not present in the area. But Dr. Wheatley says the move will give Portmore access to critical funding, which will aid in its development.
Being a parish, Portmore will be able to create and implement its own development plan, collect and utilize its own property taxes without the intervention of any other jurisdiction. In addition, Madam Speaker, the Sunshine City will enjoy a share of the parochial revenue fund to finance its plans. This access and independence, Madam Speaker, will lead to a more developed area. Can you imagine, Madam Speaker, like I have, a model smart parish, where matters such as waste management, traffic control, security, outdoor spaces, and recreational infrastructure are all taken into consideration.
Dr. Wheatley says residents of Portmore should expect roadway expansion and other developments as the city moves to parish status.
An additional 25 roads are to be gazetted as main roads and will be treated accordingly under the program of the National Works Agency. In fact, Madam Speaker, these 25 roads will be dualized as part of the effort to improve the flow of traffic within Portmore. Those of us, Madam Speaker, who are familiar with Portmore will easily recognize that a major concern of the citizens of Portmore is the entry and exit points in Portmore. That is something, Madam Speaker, that we need to address if we are serious about establishing Portmore as a parish.
The debate will continue next week when MP for South St. Catherine, Fitz Jackson, is expected to respond.
Wholeness doubles down on call for public to exercise personal responsibility with COVID. Prime Minister Andrew Holness is stressing the need for Jamaicans to use their freedom responsibly as he doubled down on his statements that the country would not go back to lockdowns to manage COVID waves. He noted recently that instead Jamaicans should go out and take the vaccine as Jamaica grapples with a fourth wave of the virus.
Today, while speaking at the official opening of the new headquarters of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, the Prime Minister expressed that the government has to strike a reasonable balance going forward.
There are rules and regulations and requirements under the DRMA which have been set many months ago, which the nation was advised of, and it is these rules that we will continue to observe. Now, there are those who would want to see tighter rules, but we have to reach a reasonable balance. Tighter rules could mean less work, it could mean less economic activity, less income, and that could also mean more social problems.
The Prime Minister has been criticized for his comments indicating argument done in relation to tighter COVID-19 restrictions. This as the country's COVID-19 indicators are moving in the wrong direction. Effective today, public hospitals across the country will only be taking emergency cases. Most hospitals are almost out of bed spaces. But the Prime Minister today doubled down on his argument done comment, noting that the spread of the virus is dependent on the actions of citizens.
I believe we all understand that it is now down to us in this, our 60th year of independence. What does independence mean? It doesn't mean freedom to do as you wish. It means freedom to act responsibly. And I reinforce the point that, yes, government has a duty to protect the citizen, even against themselves. But in a democracy, which we claim, where people have freedom, that freedom comes with an inescapable responsibility.
Prime Minister Holness says Jamaicans must use this freedom responsibly because the government can do so much and no more.
This nation must develop and learn to use their freedom responsibly. And as the leader of the nation at this time, regardless of pushback, objections, I must stand firm, to borrow a term from my friend Mark, indeed, that we must act responsibly. Each citizen must do their part. The government can only do so much. Government has limits.
Holness' argument don't comment being taken out of context, says Tufton. Minister of Health and Wellness Dr. Christopher Tufton has moved to clarify Prime Minister Andrew Holness' comments, indicating argument done in relation to tighter COVID-19 restrictions. The Prime Minister has been criticized for the comments as the country's COVID-19 indicators are moving in the wrong direction. But the Health Minister says the Prime Minister's comments were taken out of context.
I think that the interpretation of the response may some clarification, correction, if you will. And the truth is that the government has never approached the response to COVID, even in this period of a fourth wave, with a single response. We have had a multifaceted approach to the response. Vaccination remains the most effective, and we continue to press that case. And I think the Prime Minister, very understandably so, is as frustrated as I am. While I appreciate the anxieties and fears, if you will, around the increase in positivity and indeed the regret that deaths are taking place, I think the case has to be made that the government is not insensitive to the threat that the virus represents and are in fact and have been addressing in a number of ways that threat. But the fact remains, Jamaicans have to recognize that they have an important role to play.
GOJ would face difficulties enforcing mandatory COVID-19 vaccination policy, says Tufton. Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton says the government would face difficulties in enforcing a mandatory vaccination policy in the country. There have been widespread calls for the government to mandate the COVID-19 vaccines. Presently, only 22% of the population is fully vaccinated against the virus. However, Dr. Tufton says the government has to carefully consider how such a mandate would be enforced before it can move in that direction.
There are many issues around that which policy has to, or policymakers have to consider in taking extreme positions around mandating vaccination. For example, the capacity to enforce a mandate. You have 22% of the population that have voluntarily, with all the information and support that has been given, taken the vaccines, which means you have the vast majority of Jamaicans who have not. The question is, do you have the capacity to pass a law or to implement or institute a policy in a way that you can enforce? That is an extreme position, and that is not being actively discussed or considered, the strict, full-fledged mandate. However, the issue or the idea around vaccinate or test is, to my mind, a very important and worthwhile option that has been discussed at different levels. With an intention of examining how that can be implemented, and indeed the government has in fact done so on a trial basis in the area of sports recently, when we required a vaccinated audience only for a Jamaica-USA match.
200 nurses in COVID-19 isolation, says NAJ. More than 200 nurses across the island are reportedly in isolation due to an increase in suspected or confirmed COVID-19 cases. That disclosure was made by President of the Nurses Association of Jamaica, NAJ, Patsy Edwards-Henry, as hospitals continue to face mounting pressure from a surge in the COVID-19 cases. Mrs. Henry says some changes have been made to accommodate the increase.
The number of admissions have gone up. As we ended the third wave, a number of what we would call now the COVID wards had been closed. We now have to reopen. The isolation areas are open. We have a number of persons in isolation, and we also are seeing the numbers of our critically ill patients. Those are the ones requiring ventilatory support and oxygen. That's also going up. And at the same time, while we have an increase in the patient load, we are having a decrease in those who are in the service areas to take care of those who are becoming ill. I do know that yesterday the university had over 50 nurses out, but then the university is one of our bigger hospitals. Maypen is severely affected. Mandeville Regional had big complaints. Cornwall, Sav, and Bustamante Hospital for Children. Victoria Jubilee was having serious challenges, and a number of nurses are out at KPH. So a number of the facilities are affected. Primary health care is seriously affected also because a number of public health nurses are also out on quarantine and isolation. We are okay with it. The thing is, we had communication and dialogue, and that's the important part. So the regional director did call. He had the dialogue before he even started, and I put it out to the members, and for the most part, we are okay with it. While we understand that a number of our members need the break, we just have to do what we have to do right now.
Please remember to subscribe, like, share, and click the notification bell for daily updates.